Okay, great. Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Just by way of introduction, my name is Jim Maughan, and I'm with Cyber Science Corporation. We also have David Chiddington on the line with us. David's going to be doing the demonstration of the new FRW or Financial Report Writer module. But what I'd like to just mention up front is that we can't hear questions during the session. So if you have a question, enter it in the question box within the Zoom window, and I'll be monitoring those. And at the appropriate times, I'll be interrupting David to ask some questions. And we'll make sure if there's a question we can't answer during the webinar itself, we'll get back to you with an answer, either written or verbal. At the end of the session, you're going to get an email or a link to a survey. That survey is going to let you request a copy of the PowerPoint slides, or a link to the recording, or even a link to download a copy of the Cyberquery or FRW software. So fill out that webinar, let us know, or that seminar or that survey, let us know what you'd like, and we'll take care of you. So, okay, but again, please enter questions as they come up. So again, my name is Jim Maughan. I'm going to be just kind of giving the overview. The agenda is going to look like this. So we're going to start off and talk about typical customer requirements. What are people looking for when it comes to smarter financial reporting, in particular using SyteLine and CSI in the cloud? Now, just to kind of explain some terms, when you hear me say SyteLine, that typically, in my vernacular, means the on-prem installation of SyteLine. When I say CSI, that's the cloud. We support both, and the software works almost identically between the two. So if you hear me use one or the other and you happen to be the opposite, don't worry. We support your environment. So we're going to talk about customer requirements. We're going to talk about Cyberquery, and we call it CQ a lot of times. You might also hear me slip up and call it ECQ or Enterprise Cyberquery. It all means the same thing. That's the general reporting tool. You'll also hear me talk about Financial Report Writer, or FRW. That's the module we're specifically going to be talking about, used to make it very easy for the accounting people to build financial statements with drill down, without drill down, actual versus budget, whatever they might need. We'll spend most of our time just showing you the software and how it works. And again, at the end, fill out the survey or email me or call me, and we'll get you set up with a copy of the software or PowerPoints or whatever you might need. As we go along, we'd certainly like to talk to you about your particular financial statements, just make sure there's nothing too complex or too funky in those. But, we've got a lot of big customers using the software, so we're used to handling very complex income statements and balance sheets and uses of cash and all that. So just real high level, starting off. When we talk to customers, the number one thing they ask is we need easy access to our SyteLine financial data, whether it's SyteLine on-prem, CSI in the cloud, but it also may extend beyond that. They may say, okay, we also need to bring in budgets from Excel, or I need to bring in security from another environment. They may or may not need to see CPQ or Inforce CRM or Salesforce, or data from SAP or Oracle, or payroll systems. But again, Cyberquery can access it all. Second bullet here is just reports, charts, analytics. We can basically deliver any kind of output in any kind of format you need, including scheduling and email distribution, linked reports so people can click and drill down through an income statement to look at it, by unit codes or by division or department or whatever. You can also output the data to Excel, PDF, or HTML. We'll also talk about the whole power side. So again, all the financial statements, audit reports, bills of material, you can do it all in Cyberquery. We'll also talk about statement packs, where again, the accounting team can build a pack that they can send to the bank or to the board of directors or to management that includes everything from typical statements all the way through AR aging, AP aging kind of reports, audit reports of any type. You can put those in the packets. Charts showing sales performance. Again, they can all be part of your statement packs. We'll also cover the pricing. The pricing is very reasonable. You don't need to mortgage the farm to get into Cyberquery and FRW. You can license the software month to month, annually, or a perpetual license, whatever works out best for your budget environment. So we'll get into more specifics of those as we go along. The goal with FRW, the financial report writer, is to make the creation of financial statements something that the accountants can do. You don't need to be an IT person to be able to do that. And David's going to be demonstrating that as we go forward. Key advantages using FRW. Number one, very easy to use. It's all graphical. Click, drag, drop. Number two, eliminates errors and inconsistencies in your financial statements. Three, faster period closes. Get those reports out on a more timely basis. The system handles multiple sites and up to 8 dimensions or unit codes. Handle multiple currencies. Also allows you to merge data from external sources. You know, most people today still seem to have their budgets in Excel or a CSV file. We can pull those in and do actual versus budget. So even though the actuals may be coming from CSI in the Gov cloud, you can still bring in budgets from other sources like Excel or CSV files. The system's very powerful in terms of loading your existing roll-up structures, whether that's in SyteLine or CSI or Excel. We can pull that into FRW and make the transition very easy for you. The system also contains a lot of security, so you can really control who can see what and do what within FRW, who can see these statements or who can build statements, who can modify reports. Very extensive security. Again, full user control and security. And then the ability to combine data from Cyberquery, which can see everything within CSI and SyteLine, to FRW, which is focused more on the financial statements. So really, it's just a simple environment for building all your financial statements. And David Chiddington's going to take over now and kind of go through the rest of the PowerPoint slides and show the demo. But again, remember to look for the survey at the end of the session. Fill that out and let us know whether you want, again, the PowerPoints, a link to the recording, or a download copy of Cyberquery and FRW.
Okay, so I'm going to start off just by showing you a couple of sample reports from FRW, and then we're going to get into the product itself. And the product is sort of a twofold system. We have a viewer and we have the actual writer. So I'm going to first show you a couple of options here as far as some of the reports that we've got. Here is a financial report, which is a profit and loss. Now, what this shows is that we can do this year versus last year with variances. We have, in this case, we actually have column variances. And we also have row variances. We have lots of flexibility in how we calculate differences from period to period. Lots of flexible formatting. So if you want to have your negative numbers showing in red, or you want to highlight certain values that are over or below certain thresholds, we can do all of that within the formatting functionality. We can put in borders, et cetera, et cetera. Multiple period reporting. So we have, this one shows an actual year to date. It also shows an average quarter. We maintain year to date figures, period figures, quarterly figures, lots of different ways of looking at this thing. Jim mentioned detail reporting and drill down. Well, we can do both. In this case, our sales line here is actually broken down by the detail of the actual underlying account values. Further down, the returns and cost of sales and all of those are not broken out, but you could click on them and actually drill down to that value. So you can have full detail, or you can have drill down detail, or a combination of both. We also allow for full end user report or notes at the end of the month. When you're in the viewer, you can add notes as you're going through your statements, you're reviewing your month end. And that can be restricted by user. Again, most of FRW is security enhanced so that each user has the ability to do exactly what you want them to be able to do, as far as what sites they can access, what functions they can do. So if someone is allowed to look at a report but not modify the notes, we can do that, or someone may have access to modify notes. And these notes can be company-wide, or they can be filter specific. In our case, different sites would maybe have different notes. We can do both of those. So let's get started and take a look at the viewer itself. So I'm just going to swap over here. So when you first log on to Cyberquery, you'll have some choices here. Now, in our environment, we've got writer and we've got the viewer. I want to start with the viewer. So I'm going to just click on that. It's going to start up our viewer with the last report that we were actually looking at. So in our case, this is the balance sheet that we are looking at. So if I look at this balance sheet, we've got a few things at the top. This is the viewer itself. So this is the module that you will do most of your month-end work in. Once you've created your reports and built up a library of reports, you would publish them to the viewers so that your end users can simply bring them up and view them with the most current data that we've extracted from your system. So what we have at the top here is report groups, which allow us to group our reports within different groups based on your user criteria. So you may have, in our case, we have a couple of groups here. We have our My Favorites group, which everybody would have their own. We have board reports. So if I click on board reports, you'll see there's a certain number of reports that belong to this group. These are the board of directors might see these reports and they don't need to see anything more. Finance people might see all the reports. They'd have a larger list of reports. Management might have certain reports that are only available to them. You can set this structure up any way you like. The report groups you can name however you like them, have as many or as few as you wish, and it's got full flexibility in that regard. The next line over is our report itself. This is the report that's been selected, in our case, a balance sheet. And then we get into our filters. So the filters in this case are based on our site and our year and our period. There could be more filters depending on how you built your report. As was mentioned, we can support up to 8 different dimensions or unit codes. Each one of those could be a separate filter within your report. So you can change these values whenever you want. So in the case of, if I decided I wanted to, instead of look at our US site, I wanted to look at our UK site, I could click on the UK site and it's going to rerun this report with the UK values in here. Now, I know that I've changed this from the default values of the original report when it was written, which was defaulting to the US site, because now my filter is in white as opposed to the standard yellow that it is. I can go back to, at any time, I can just, by clicking on the X, and it'll default back to the default filters for that particular report. So the reports themselves, we can select by simply coming down here. If I wanted to look at a profit and loss comparative, I could just simply click on that. It's going to run that report for me, again, with the same values of the filters that was set up for that particular report. If I decide I wanted to look at a previous month, I can simply just select that period and it will rerun this report based on that previous month. Again, I can click on the X and go back to my default. Now this is defaulting right now to our current period, which in our demonstration environment is December of 2020. Yours will be obviously the current period, and this is a dynamic change. You don't have to worry about changing to the current period. We do that for you automatically as you tell us which period you're in. All of these default values will update based on that information. The report itself, if you have a lot of reports in here, you could actually come and do a search in here. So if I knew I had some reports that were based on the cost center, I could type in the word cost, and it's going to list these reports for me. So now I'm just narrowed it down to my cost center reports within my finance reports group. If I think that there's a report that I want, but it may not be in this report group, I can click on this down arrow and it's going to show me all the reports in the different report groups. And you can see I've duplicated this one in all 3, and this one is only available here. But then you can just simply click on one of these reports and it's going to bring up that report for you. This report is a cost center report. It uses one of our dimensions, which is cost center. And so now we have a filter value for that. So if I'm looking at this, I can say, well, this is based on online sales as an example. But I'm more interested in our telephone sales. So if I come down here and just click on telephone sales, then I'm going to get to the same report, but it's going to be now based on the cost center telephone sales. This is fairly simple, but you can see if you have multiple unit codes in your system, how this might be very useful for you. You could have multiple filters up here, which would give you really detailed data depending on how you selected that. But if you're in charge of telephone sales, as an example, and the default value is online sales, and you're always getting that and having to change that, then we have the ability of actually adding something to your favorites, which is individual to each person. So I could come up here and click on a plus sign here to add this to my favorites. And instead of that, I'm going to just call it telesales or something along those lines. So when I click OK here, it's now created this exact report with the default value for my unit code to be telephone sales. And it's in my favorites folder here now. So if I look at my favorites, I've got a few things in there already. And this is the new one I just added. I can modify that at any time by coming into manage my favorites. I wanted to move that. Let's put it at the top of the list here. Click OK. Now when I look here, this is at the top of my list. If at some point I've decided, I don't need this report in my favorites anymore, I can remove it from my favorites. It doesn't remove the report itself. It just removes it from my favorite. And I go back to where I was, which was under the finance reports. So we have a lot of different types of reports that we can look at. So I wanted to show you a couple of examples of some of the reports that we use. I'm just going to go back to my standard one here. If I look at the profit and loss comparative report as an example, this one looks at simply our income and our expenditures, and it looks at our current year, which is December 2020, and our previous period, the previous year, and a variance between the two. If I decided I wanted to make this a drill down report, in FRW, I'll show you how to do that, but it's a very simple process of just going to and saying, make this report a drill down, and we'll do all the underlying work for you. The example I've got here will show you what that looks like when I do it. So if I come down here and look at the drill down, you'll see that this is the exact same report that I had, but now it's a drill down version of it. So what this allows me to do is actually click on any of these items and see the underlying accounts that make up these roll-up items. So if I click on sales as an example, this is actually going to show me the breakdown of that $145 million in sales by account number. If we have been able to pull enough data from your system, your transactional data, then we can also drill down even further. So I could click on women's clothing of the 29 million here and actually look at the journal transaction report that makes up that value. And this is going to give me my breakdown all the way down to the transactional level. I can go back to my first level here of account or back to my report at any time. And this is all simply by checking a checkbox in FRW and saying, this report, I now want to make it as a drill down report. It's that simple. Let's look at some other options here. We have a phased analysis report as an example. So this one will actually give us a full year report. So from January through December, if I've decided I only want to see at July, it will give me my values up to July with the total for July. As a variation on that, we could have, let me put this back to my December values. We could have what we call a trailing analysis report. So that will actually start in my current period that I've selected and go back 12 months. So this starts in December and works my way back to January. And if I change this to, say, September, then we'll start in September and go back to the previous August or October, rather. And so that's a rotating value that we can do very easily. So most of these, I'm using a simple site one at a time. Again, I can change this at any time to a different site. It will recalculate based on this site. But we also have the ability of doing multiple company sites. So let me just clear these back, and I'm going to select a profit and loss report for a multi-company. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me all of 4 of my sites on with their native currency, so US dollars, pound sterling, Australian dollars, and euros. This may or may not be very helpful to you, but because we can manage multi-currency, you can look at this in this light, or you could do something like this, where we'd actually do a profit and loss group. And what we'll do is we'll take those same values, but we'll convert them based on your exchange rates that you've got. So your exchange rates can be held within your ERP system, and we can pull it at the time we extract all your financial data. You could maintain them in FRW itself. We have a module that will allow you to enter your exchange rates. And you can have different exchange sets. So you could have multiples. I have an average and an end of year exchange set, but you might have more than that. Or you could maintain these in a spreadsheet as well. I have a lot of customers that do that, and they update a spreadsheet. And then when we're extracting data from your SyteLine site, we also go and pull that data from their exchange rate Excel spreadsheet. And then it's available to them at the rates that they put in. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm taking the rates from the exchange rates, and I'm normalizing this to the US, or in this case, the British pounds. But I decided I want to make this US dollars. It's just a matter of clicking on US dollars, and it'll do the recalculation based on that. Now, that's some of the reports that we've got. Let's have a look here. We also have the ability of running reports that are built within Cyberquery itself that are not necessarily based on general ledger transactional information that FRW generally uses. But if you wanted to run, I think Jim mentioned an age trial balance, for instance, you could create one in Cyberquery, and then we could publish it within the FRW world. And that could be available to your users at month end to see. One other option is something like a chart. So if I put a sales analysis chart in here, we can look at this sales analysis chart, which is based on sales information that may or may not be being pulled from the general ledger, but we can actually create that within Cyberquery and publish it right into the FRW world. And we can also put it into packs. And I'm going to show you a pack in a minute here, but I just wanted to let you know that we can do lots of different things from your different Cyberquery reports and bring them in as either charts or actual reports within the FRW world. So once they've been all published and created, we can bring them in here and publish them here for your viewers to use on a month-by-month basis. Now, we also have what we call packs. These are packaged reports where we put multiple reports together and create a PDF. So the PDF can be used in the viewer. You can view it in the viewer at the month end, or it can be published via an email. Now, the email would contain a link back to the PDF pack. This ensures that only authorized users are allowed to view the pack. So you can't we're not sending financial statements out as PDF. That's a terrible idea. So we don't do that. What we do is you can send them a link, and if they're authorized, they'll log in, and then they'll be opening the viewer and seeing that PDF report is itself. So let me show you some examples of some PDF reports. So the first one I'm going to show you is our management report, management pack. So the management pack has, let me make this a little smaller. So this is a PDF. So what it starts off with, this management pack has a front page. It shows the company, the pack name, the period, the date it was prepared, and the table of contents. In this case, it's a fairly simple one. We have a profit and loss report and a balance sheet report. And then you could have an optional back page. So we start off with this title page. I'm just going to scroll down, and we'll see our profit and loss report. And then we'll have a balance sheet report. And then finally, this back page. So when we run this pack, it goes out and creates these reports and puts the pack together. So if I came up here and decided I wanted to do the same for November, it's going to rebuild that report based on our November numbers now. And it's rebuilt my profit and loss and my balance sheet based on November. The other type of pack that we can have is what we call a group pack, which in, let's just here. So in this case, it's very similar to our company pack, but it has another step to it where we actually have sections. So in our group pack, we have the front page, which shows the contents at the group level. but it also shows me that there are company sections afterwards. When I get to those company sections, each one of those sections will have its own table of contents. So in this level, we are dealing with a group profit and loss and a balance sheet. We're also starting there with a PDF introduction. So these are great for sending to banks. They love this sort of stuff where you can put in your financial notes at the beginning, and then they can see an overview of the company. So in this case, we're showing a full for all companies, profit and loss, and a balance sheet. And then we'll get down and have another title page for each site. So our US site also has a profit and loss for US, a balance sheet, and a sales analysis chart in this case. So we built this profit and loss for just the US site, and a balance sheet for just the US site, and then a sales analysis for the US site again. And then we repeat it for each one of our sites. So there's a UK site one, and then there's an Australian one, and finally there's a European one. And then a end of page. So each one of these can be combined as a single report. So when I run this, it runs all of those reports and puts the whole pack together. The other item that we could do is we can do a company pack. So the company pack works really well in a secure environment where you may have certain people that are allowed to see reports based on their site, but not the other sites. So if they have been restricted to a certain site and they run this company pack, then the only site that will be available to them in the dropdown will be their site. So what this does is allows you to create one report and then distribute it to all your sites, knowing that each individual will be restricted to see just their sites. In my case, I'm allowed to see all the sites, so I can click on any of them and I will get that company information and the reports that are appropriate to that. But if I was restricted to just this one, this would be the only option that I would have in my particular drop-down list. Okay, just going to go back to the balance sheet here. So at the end of the month, you can do a number of things here. What we will allow you to do is update your current period. So right now, my current period is set at December. So within the report itself, or the report viewer rather, we can update our current period. So let's say, for instance, I was back in period 11. We have just closed, say, we're in period 10. Let me do it this way. Let's say we're in period 10 and my reporting period is 9. Now, what we do is we give you 2 periods to work with. The idea being that if you're in the finance, or you're one of the finance people, you're probably going to need to run interim reports mid-month to see how things are going. But you may not want all your end users to be able to look at reports on partially closed months. So they would be part of the reporting period group. So all they would be able to see is reports up to and including the reporting period that you've set. Whereas your finance people might be able to see a period ahead, or maybe 2 periods ahead, depending on how you want to do it. These are independently updated. So if we were closing off our October and we decided, okay, October is now done. Our finance folks are going to move into November. I'm going to move that up there, but I now also want my reporting people to see our finalized October session. So I'm going to move those to October, and I can click OK here. And I'm going to change them for both. I will accept that. Now it's telling me this. My current period has changed. So do I want to run it for the new current period? My old current period was December. So I'm going to say yes to this. And it's going to now run it for November. That's because I'm a finance person. I can see November. But if I were a reporting person only, I could only go to October. But you see, December is no longer available to me because I haven't moved my period up. So this is something you can do from within the viewer itself. And most of your month-end transactions, as far as reporting is concerned, can be done from here. I'm going to move that back up to December. So we have all our reports available to us right up to the end of the month. The other thing that you can do within the viewer itself, if you have the right authority to do so, is to add notes to a system. So let me look at a note one. So here's a notes report. We add the functionality for notes by simply going into the report and saying, I want notes on this report. And it changes my standard profit and loss reports to a profit and loss report with notes capability. I don't add the notes in the writer itself. We add them in the viewer. So you'll see that I've got some notes here, and they're filtered down below. And I can come up here and edit my notes at any time. So if I decided I wanted to put a note on duties, I can click on here and I can just say duty note and click OK. And what it'll do is it's going to run my report and renumber everything. It'll give me my duty note that I put here and renumber all of my other ones subsequent after that. Now, this is a note specific filter. So what I'm saying here is this is for the US company only. So this is a note for just the US. So if I change my company over to the UK, I'm going to have different notes here for the UK. So that is, you can make it a company-wide note, depending on how you want to set it up, or a specific filter note. I'm going to go back to my US, and I'm going to, now if I decide that that note's no longer relevant here, I can just simply click on it, exit, click OK, and I'm back to where I was before without the note. So that's essentially the viewer. What I'd like to show you now is to go into the writer itself and see how we've created these reports, just to show you the simplicity of that. So let me close this, and we're going to open up our report writer now. So when we open the report writer, we are presented with a wizard. And what it's going to ask, it's going to show me, first of all, is the last report that I was working on. Now, you'll notice all these have sessions. So this session 1 is the current session that I'm on. I could have multiple sessions opened up. So you can have as many FRW sessions as you want. You could run side by side if you wish. That's not a problem at all. And it maintains the information on a user by user basis. So if someone else was working in a balance sheet yesterday and they opened up FRW today, the balance sheet would be showing for them as opposed to this. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't want that one. I'm going to open the existing report. I'm going to open up my profit and loss comparative. When I click on the open report, I get this preview of the last time that it was run. So I can tell if it's the report that I want or not. And this is in fact the case. So I'm going to click OK and open it up. And what this is going to do is it's going to load the definitions of this report into the system. So this is the editor itself. This is how you create reports. This is how you modify reports. And this is also how you publish reports to the viewer. You can have reports that you're working on and you're not ready to put them out to the viewer yet. You don't have to put them out until you are ready. Once you are, then you click on this to publish that report and it's available to everybody. But you can work on these as long or as little as you need until you're happy with them, and you can publish them. But you can also view them within here. If I click on the running man here, this is going to actually run this report for me. And it's going to take this report definition and put it in and run it. So this is a report that we've seen before. This is the profit and loss comparative that we viewed in the viewer. And everything's the same up here. The only difference being that we don't have report groups here, because report groups are specifically for publishing. And right now we are working with a single report within the editor. So that's the only report I can play with. I don't change the report here. I change the report from opening it up in here. But this allows me to see how I'm doing, make sure things are working the way I expect them to be working, and I can run them as often as I need while I'm developing my report. So going back to the writer itself, this is a multi-tab system that we set up our individual functions for each report. Now, what we do here is you can see at the very top, we have the report name. This is the name that is stored within the system itself. So it's the file name, if you will. Our finance periods, again, are over here. If I click on here, I can change them here as well. That's not a problem, or I can do it within the viewer, as we saw earlier. And then we have the report title itself. Now, in this case, the report name and the report title are the same. That does not have to be the case. You can call it whatever you like. At the top of the report, we had a few things that when I ran this. So let me just look at it again. We have our page header, which is right at the top here. We have our run date in this case, and our company name and our page. And we have our report title. There it is, that report title that we saw on the screen. We have our page headings. So in this case, we're showing our filter values, essentially, is what we're doing here. So our site and our period. And then we have our column headings, which are obviously our year-to-date this year versus last. And then our rows and our headings, which are income, expenditure, etc., the balances themselves and total lines. And then we have our columns, which have the data in them. And we have our page footers and blank lines. We have no page footers in this one, but you could have page footers. So in the viewer, you see the report that you're presently working on and the values of the filters. And again, you can change these values within this report or within this viewer as well, just like you could in the viewer itself. Anytime you want, you can, on this applies to the viewers, right, as well. You can right click on this and click view as a spreadsheet, and it will give you a spreadsheet version of this report, provided you have Excel or some spreadsheet program in your system. Identical version of the report in your system, and it maintains all the formatting, etc. So that's easy to move in and out of that situation. Going back to FRW, I want to show you a few of the things that make up this the report writer itself. So we have the name, the title, and then we get into the summary. So in the summary, we have what we use as far as our row set and our column set. So all of our reports are based on the premise that they all contain a row set, which defines the row lines, and a column set, which defines the actual columns themselves. And with the way we've done it this way so that you can mix and match. So you might have a financial, a profit and loss, for instance, that looks at your year-to-date value and compares to last year's year-to-date. You might want to have that exact same report as far as lines are concerned, but you want to break it down month by month. Well, rather than rebuilding the whole report from scratch, you can use the same row set with a different column set. And once you build up a catalog of these rows and columns sets, then you can mix and match them and create a whole myriad of different reports. So that's the concept behind the row set, column set, the way we work that. The next section down here is the report filters we have. In this case, we have 3 of them. If I click on edit report filters, you can see we have other ones available to them that they're not set up right now. These would all be based on the unit codes in your own system. So these names will change depending on how you set them up in your ERP system. We pull them in, and then you can add them to your reports. And if I wanted to define cost centers on this report, it's just a simple matter of defining the cost center here and adding it as a filter. And then it will then filter when you actually run the report. We have page headings. In our case, what we're doing here is we're using the values of our filters, which are company name, period, and year, to dynamically change your headers. So you don't have to go in and change them all the time. If you change the name or the year or period, which is changed automatically by forcing it ahead, the headings will change dynamically based on that. So quickly looking at some rows here, let's look at the row tab. This is the actual lines that you see on each one of your reports. You can see I have my sales, my returns, cost of sales, etc. I have them, the row type is a heading, their balances, their totals, blank lines. You can see all of that sort of thing. And in this case, what we're doing, we bring in your data in its native format. So revenue accounts come in as generally as credit values. And some people like to see them that way as negatives on their reports, but most people like to have them reversed. So we can simply reverse the values at reporting time, as opposed to having to change the values or multiply by -1 or whatever. We'll do that for you. You decide how you want to set this up. And then you can decide whether or not you want to add things or subtract things. So in our case, we're adding them all together here, and we're adding our income before taxes and subtracting tax and dividends, etc. But we build our rows over here based on our options over here. So the row types we have are headings, totals, percentages, etc. And then the actual data in the actual lines are based on what we call balances. We have balance classes and balances within balance classes. So this profit and loss report is based on a balance class that's called profit and loss. Within the profit and loss balance class are individual balances. And so there are sales, which we brought over here. So if I click on one of them, like returns as an example, it will highlight the balance that's associated with this particular line. The line, the row description and the balances over here have the same thing, but they don't need to. You can call it whatever you want. But this is the key to the system. So what we have over here is our balances. And this is what we will pull from your Excel spreadsheets or however you're doing it right now, with your account mapping. So if I right click on the sales item here and go down to show balance rules, this will tell me what makes up this particular line item on my profit and loss sheet. So in this case, our sales are based on these accounts: 50,000, 150, 200, 300, 400, etc. These are the actual account numbers we've got in there. If I click on accounts, this is going to tell me what those accounts are. Now, there may be accounts here that we're defining that may not even exist or may have no values or haven't had no activity in the last year. So we wouldn't pull those, but these are the ones we've actually found that match your balance rule, and we're pulling those values in. So when we do an extract of your data, which we do nightly, but you can do at any time you want. Now, the advantage of that is at month end, if you were looking at your financial reports and you're realizing we haven't posted a certain thing, or we need to put a GL transaction in or whatever, you can go ahead and do that and then do an on-demand extract where we'll pull in that latest data and you'll have the most up-to-date information available for you. When we do those extracts, we go through and look at these balance rules and determine where we're going to get the values for each line. So we'll go through these, add up all of those numbers together, and that will be the total that you will get for your sales. And then when we have a sales item here, we go back to the balance rules to find that, so that when I run this report, that's where those values come from. As another example, and let's look at the balance rules for property as an example here. So the balance rules for the property, which I'm not using, you can see it's not highlighted here, but it's actually a range of accounts. So in this case, it's from 10,000 to end 10,018. Our rules for balances are very extensive. You can have ranges, you can have multiple ranges, you can have individual accounts like that other one was showing. I could have a range in here, and if I could say I want the range from 10,010 10,018, but I don't want 10,015, then I could put an exception in, a comma with an exclamation 10015. So it'll get everything in between here except that one count. And you can have wildcards in here. So if I wanted all accounts started with a 10, I could do that with a 10 star, that sort of thing. We'll help you with all that setup when you first come on with FRW. We'll define all these balance rules for you initially and show you how to maintain them and correct them after that. The advantage of having ranges like this, if your chart of accounts is set up well, then you could add, if you have a large range that you know are always going to be your property accounts, and you don't have a 10,016 yet, but you add it to your ERP system, if you know your range already exists in FRW, you don't have to do anything. We will pick that up the next time that we do the extract, and it'll be added to the bottom of the list here. So setting the balance rules up are a critical part to the whole system, but once they're set up, they're very easy to maintain afterwards. So that's the rows. Columns are similar in the way you set them up. In this case, this row has a row description. We have our year-to-date and our year-to-date current and previous year, and a variance column. Let's say, for instance, I looked at this variance column and it was in dollars, which I think that it is, and I wanted it in percentage instead. It's just a simple matter of coming in here and saying, I'm going to double click on this column, which is going to bring up my column details, and I'm going to change that from a value to a percentage and click OK. And then I'll run that again. And when I run it this time, it's going to be a percentage. And I apologize for the data. It's obviously just phony data, but your percentages would vary, obviously. But let's say I decided, I like that, but I also wanted to have one where the values were there. I can just right click here and do an insert. And I'm going to insert a brand new column. It's going to be a variance again, and it's going to be a value this time. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have both when I click it. And we can see that both variances will come up this way. So let's look at creating a report from scratch, just so you can see how easy it is to do. I'm going to create a report that is going to have a really simple profit and loss. So instead of building it from scratch, which we can do very easily, I'm going to use my existing report and just modify my row set. You'll notice this row set, which is called profit and loss, has 29 dependencies on it. What that means is I've used this row set over and over again with a bunch of different reports. So if I click on view dependents, I can actually see all of these reports, and there's a whole bunch of different ones with nodes and the phased analysis and all kinds of things like that. And they all have one thing in common, is that the row set is the same right down the line. So it's always going to use this row set, but with different column sets. So you can see how quickly you can come up with a bunch of different reports that suit your needs. But if I wanted to create a brand new row set, but I was happy using this column set as an example, then I can simply come in here and go new. So let's try that. I'm just going to go new, and I'm going to give it a brand new test name. Just call it test. And it's going to clear everything out. So I'm working with a blank slate now. You'll notice there are no greens over here, which means no balances have been selected and there's no rows. So let's just start off by putting a heading in first. I'm going to double click on heading, and it's going to put me over here and say, give me a heading. So I'm going to call it income. And then I want to put in some income balances. So I'm going to go to my profit and loss balance class again, and I'm just going to throw a couple in there. So I'm going to double click on sales and cost of sales. Let's say that's all I wanted. This is a very simple report. And now I want to put a total in. So I'm going to come up here and double click on total, and it's going to put a total in. A couple of things it does for me automatically, just sort of intuitively. It says, okay, you probably mean the last heading that you have. So I'm going to put in total income. If I don't like that, just a simple matter of putting my cursor there and changing to whatever I want to call it. I'm going to hover over the word total here. And you'll notice that it said cost of sales, or sales plus cost of sales. Now, I know this is correct because I know these are coming through as negatives. So that's fine. I'm happy with that. If I wasn't happy with that, it's just a simple matter of double clicking here, and it's going to bring up my row description details here. And it's going to say, well, this is what I'm doing, and here's the expression. But if I wanted to look at doing something a little different, I could say, well, let's make this minus cost of sales. So it's just a matter of clicking there. It's going to change that to that. Very simple to change. But for the most part, when we do our advanced sort of calculation, it's usually right. So let's go on and put a blank line in, and then put in another header called, and we'll call it, say, expenses. And then we'll throw a couple expenses in there, not a lot. I just want to put maybe 1, 2, 3 expenses in, and I'm going to put another total line in. So it's saying, okay, you probably mean total expenses because that one doesn't have any total to it. And it does. No, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to hover over the total line here and see what it did. And it said maintenance plus cost plus information technology. If that's correct, I'm good. I'll put another blank line in just for viewability. And I'm going to put a third total in because I want to summarize this now. This is all I wanted for income. It's all I wanted for expenses. Anytime, of course, while I'm doing this, and I recommend this, you can run the report and just see how you're doing, see what it looks like. So far, so good, looks good. It's giving these as grand totals. You can see how they're formatted with an overbar and a double underbar because there is no real grand total to define yet. But we're going to put one in now. So I'm going to just minimize that. And I'm going to put another total in. Now, when I do this, it doesn't give me a name because it really doesn't know what I'm trying to do at this point because all my headers are taken care of. So I would just type in my own one here. I'll say profit, say loss, something like that. But if I hover over the total, you'll see that it was smart enough to figure out that I probably mean that. Total income minus total expenses, which is generally what you would want for your financial reports of a P&L nature. So I'm happy with that. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And then I'm going to hit run again. And we'll see what it looks like. So now it knows that this is a subtotal. It's changed it just to an overbar, and this is our grand total. So it does a lot of the formatting for you. It does a lot of the calculations ahead of time for you, et cetera, et cetera. So that makes your life a little easier when you want to go and actually add things. So you've seen how easy it is to add columns. This is how easy it is to add new rows and create a new row set. So at this point, I could say, oh, I love this report, exactly what I want. I can save this row set. You see, I've got no dependence on it yet because it's brand new. I'll save it with whatever name I want to call it, and I can use that over and over again. Now, as far as the style of the reports are concerned, you can make lots of changes there too. So for instance, let's say I wanted to look at this and I didn't want to look at it in dollars and cents. I wanted to report it in thousands of dollars. I'm going to come over here and click on my report setting to override my default values. And these default values can be set up however your company wants them. So if you're constantly changing it to thousands, that can be your company default and you'll never have to change it again. But I'm going to change this one report. It's going to be an override for this report to report in thousands of dollars. Click OK and click Run. And now what it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to report in thousands of dollars. It's also going to put a title up here with thousands up there. So I know that I'm reporting in thousands of dollars because we have a scale token dynamically built into our title so that whenever we change the scale, it changes it for us. Again, one more thing, I don't have to worry about making that change at the end of the time whenever I do that. So whenever I do make a change to a report, you'll notice that this little yellow triangle shows up telling me that this report's changed since last time you ran it. So if I look at this in the viewer, it's in thousands, but the new report is now and it's telling you have to run it again to update your viewer. Okay, so that's essentially the report writer as far as that's concerned. Now, one of the things that we did see in the couple of things we saw in the viewer, and I wanted to show you how easy it is to create report columns and make changes to reports. So for instance, the phased analysis report, which actually just showed us the full month, 12-month period, that was a different column set here. Now, I probably have one of those, and I could come in here and say, okay, I made some changes to that. I don't want it anymore. I could come down here and say, well, there's my phased analysis. I can just select that and go, or I can build my own. So I'm going to build my own, show you how easy it is. So I'm going to go new set here again, and I'm going to call this one test as well. And I'll double click here to add a new column. So I'm going to put in my row column, my row description, the column again. And then I want to put in an actual period, and I want to use a specific period here. So I want to start with my period number 1. And the reason I want to do that is I want to go from January right through to December. I'm going to click OK here. Now, I could come in here, double click, do the same for February, March, et cetera, et cetera. Or I can come into this, back into this column and do an advanced option. And I can do a repeat, and I want to repeat it based on the period. I'm going to click OK there. So now this is going to repeat itself based on the period. And then the last thing I want to do when I'm done is I want a total. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to put in a total column. And it's going to total up my column that I've got here. Now, I only have one, but this is going to be a repeated column. So it will total up all of my repeated columns. I'll click OK. So I built a 12-month with a total end report with 3 columns. When I go to run this, it's going to look at my finance period and say, okay, we're in period 12. I got to build 12 of those, and it's going to create all that for me and give me my full 12-month period with 3 columns. The nice thing about that is if you decide you wanted to make some changes here, you make a change to a single column and it populates itself all the way through. For instance, if I decided, you know what, I don't like just the Jan, I want it to say January, I could double click up here and come in, instead of saying the short name, period short name, let's look up a period token here. I've got the period full name, let's see, right there, period name. So instead of period short name, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to put in period name there. I just do a refresh. That's what I want to see. Click OK. Now when I run this, it's going to do that for all my periods right straight through. So now I've got that right across the board without having to go through and modify 12 different columns, that sort of thing. Makes it a lot easier. Now, if we decided this is a report that we wanted to have as a drill down, for instance, well, it's very simple to change it to a drill down. We just simply come in here and go to settings and say, make it a drill down. Click that. That's going to give me a drill down capability. And let's also at the same time say I want to have notes in it. I click on that, and that's going to give me notes. Now, when I go to my columns now, you'll notice I have a couple extra columns here. There's a couple of account columns there that are for the drill down underlying report. And I also have a notes column here. So when I run this, I will get my 12-month period with a new note column, but I also have my drill down capability. So when I click on that, I will get my, when I click on that, I would get my drill down, which I normally would get this is a demo environment that I don't have the underlying data on, but that will give you your drill down report that you saw in the viewer. So that's the simple way of adding all these things. And if in the settings, if I decided I wanted to go further, I could do it based on a combination of accounts, or even drilling down to journal level stuff to enable the links. And it's just a click, 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 and you've got all these new functions available to you. Again, the rows and columns are the heart and mind of the whole system, and that's what really makes the system work easily and quickly to build your reports out.
Okay. Hey, David, there's a question that came in about using CSI in the cloud and then having multiple spreadsheets for multiple budgets or multiple forecasts. Any issue bringing in multiple spreadsheets or forecasts or budgets?
No, we need to have a look at your spreadsheet, how that was set up. But we deal with multiple forecasts all the time, because people definitely have multiple forecasts, and it can be site specific for budgets, et cetera, et cetera. We pull all that in. We would give you some guidelines as to the best format to use. Now, it may be something like what you've got, and we can probably tailor it to what you've got. Or if you don't have something simple, we can give you an idea of a good format that we can pull in quite easily. And as long as we know where it's stored and we know the structure of the Excel spreadsheet, then we can pull that in at the same time we pull your data in from your CSI cloud data.
Okay, thank you.
And it's invisible to you. You don't see it. It just does the extract. It's all behind the scenes. So as long as you keep that up to date, then we can pull that in. Same with things like exchange rates. If you are updating your exchange rates, we pull your exchange rates every time we do an extract. If they've been updated, then you'll have the latest and greatest data there.
Okay, David, one more question.
Yeah.
The question is this for finance only, or can you pull other information such as production data?
This is for finance only. It's based on the general ledger tables. We pull very specific tables from CSI. However, as you saw with the sales reports that I had, the charts, we can build reports within Cyberquery, which has access to all your tables, and publish them within the FRW environment. So if you have a production report that you want built, we can build it in Cyberquery and publish it within the report writer, and it would be available to you at the month end. So you've got the ability to grab all that data, but you wouldn't create. What we do here is when we create a report, I'm just going to discard this to show you. When we create a report, we can create a financial report that is based on the general ledger information that FRW has access to. Or we create a Cyberquery report, which is something that's built outside of FRW, and we bring it in and publish it in our environment.
And what about things like boats built per month or planes built per month? Can you bring in that kind of data?
Any data that's available in your ERP system that Cyberquery has access to, and you can build if you can build a report, like basically, if you can build a report in Cyberquery, we can publish it in FRW.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, and it looks like we're getting pretty close to the end. For all the other questions that are out there, we'll get back to you on those. But remember, at the end, you should receive a questionnaire or a survey that will let you then request either a copy of the PowerPoints or a link to the recording, or even a download. So fill those out, and then we'll get back to you. We look forward to working with you, and thank you, everybody, for participating today. Thank you very much. Goodbye.